You.
Like now, there's like a red blinking
I
light.
got tally light. I get it.
You know what that means?
Yes. I'll look at you.
That means I'm Brent Leary.
And wait, what are you doing here? I'm Paul Greenberg.
Yeah, I'm usually on that side.
Right.
But, we're in Denver, so anything goes in Denver from what I hear.
I have no clue. I never go to Denver.
We're here for a good reason. We are the CRM Playaz, and we usually outperform, right? Is that kind of what we do?
That's a pretty arrogant view of ourselves. But
well, who else is going to have it if we don't?
It's true.
But anyway, we're here at Denver, at kind of like near the convention center at the Hyatt. We're here for Pros Outperform, the first Outperform in 4 years?
Yeah, it's actually amazing because I've digitally seen. I've known these guys for 8 years, and I've digitally seen almost everybody I saw in person here, and it's still ridiculous. I mean, it's like, well, first it's like no time has passed, and second it's like, wait a minute, I haven't seen you for 4 years.
Yeah,
it really does come across that way. At a certain point, you get hit by the stunning nature of that.
But it's good to see the people again, right?
Oh, it's awesome.
You know what? This is our 5th or 6th event back, from last year, midway through last year so it's almost like a year when you think about it that we've gotten back on the road again.
It was
June of last year.
Last year.
So we're almost a year back into like face to face, and I'll tell you, the feeling's still there. Everybody's just so happy to be back in physical form. It's cool.
Well, the other thing that was amazing when we did last year in June. Let's say this. Our setup time for this event went from about 12 hours to about 10 minutes, right, in 1 year.
So in other words, we finally are getting it right.
We literally outperformed.
And it's also good to have like good help.
This guy, rock star, man, he saves us.
Absolutely. So this is cool. You see the background. There's a lot of hustle. There's a lot of bustle. There's a lot of stuff going on. But we are really fortunate because we're going to have 3 guests. We usually just only have 1, but we got 3 guests. I don't know why I'm doing that.
I was about to ask, what are you doing now?
I don't know. It's a show, It's, I feel like we got to do a show.
This is drama.
Is it drama?
Yeah. So here's the thing. I'm 73. I do that. I feel like it hurts. I'm arthritic.
All right. Well, you don't have to do that.
Discovered I have arthritis.
That's all right. You don't have to do that. Oh, it looks like one of our. Wait a minute. We're going out of order here, but that's okay because it's somebody we know pretty well. No, it's not. No, we're
reverse ordering. It looks like.
Are we? So let us know what we're doing. But we have 3 great guests that we're going to be having on and talking about all the stuff that's going on at the conference. And we have one of the Pros customers, who I think we just see right now, and then of course we've got some of our one of our friends that we've known for about 10 years or so, right? Dr. Michael Wu, and then of course we have the CMO Grad Conn. So going to be good.
You know what? I'm actually really excited for this. One thing I've noted about the event generally is Pros is in the best place as far as its position in the market as that's ever been.
Well, I mean, speaking of Michael Wu, he's like, our go-to guy for AI, and he's been like that for a decade.
Yeah.
And now when everybody is talking about this stuff, they have him. They've had him for years. So it's really good that we're going to get a chance to reconnect with him. Let's do a quick check. Are we going to go with our first guest now? Okay, so we're going a little bit out of order, but we're usually out of order anyway.
It looks like we're reverse ordering.
Yes, we have to make some changes.
We're doing reverse engineering here right on the fly.
But we are very flexible people.
So why don't we do this? I don't want to butcher our guest name. I know he's from Lasership. And I'm always afraid of saying the person's name wrong. So why don't we just invite him over and then we will ask him to tell us who he is and what he does. So
come on over.
Join us right in the middle.
Have a seat, my friend.
Get it over, sir.
There's so many ways. We were practicing saying your name and we think we had it, but since you're here.
If you see our fists go up in triumph, we had it right.
Thank you for having me. My name is Yiling Zhang, I'm
We were pretty
senior.
close.
You're pretty cool. I got the laser ship part right.
Yeah, I'm senior director in they call it Lasership, and because we merged with the Amtrak, so I start end of the March. We changed the name to Amtrak now, so but we still can call us the Lasership. So my responsibility is most of is the uh, pricing. Our company is doing last mile delivery for B2C customer. So as you know, the COVID had like the B2C explode, right? So we have helped the customer and the delivery to the end customer. Those
Oh,
things.
I want to stop you there for a second. How difficult was it doing your job in the midst of that?
I think doing my job is not very difficult because I'm sitting in the office at home. I think the most challenging one is going to be our front end employee. They deliver day in and day out for the customer, and also our operation people. They working on the branches, stations, stock. We sort the package, all those things. And of course, our salespeople is a important part of the thing. They have to. Of course, they did a lot of the remote, right? But they still need to take care of their customer day in and day out. So to answer your question, my job is easy in that sense, but from other sense, it's difficult.
Well, see, from that standpoint, I know for years you guys work, I don't know if you still do or not, but you work with Amazon, right? Because I used to get packages from you. So my question is, though, that's a massive institution with an enormous amount of, let's call it delivery vehicles and activity. How do you even think about pricing to Amazon, what you're charging Amazon? I can't even imagine what you have to think about.
Um, That is the very difficult one to do that. Amazon is so huge, right? So nobody in our industry can support them by themselves.
Right.
So Amazon have their own uh, network, transportation, logistics thing. They also use in other companies, right? The big national and also our regional or those things. Our business is more focused on, you know,
Local.
the local and the certain area, New York City or those kind. When we do the thing, we have to work with them because they have a very special delivery requirement, right? So they, for example, they have a shipment just go to the New York City, so we have to arrange our operation accordingly to support them. So of course, from pricing standpoint, we have to work with them, right? Because they are big, right? So we need to make sure we can support them. We also can make profit from our side. So we have to balance that. That's the art part of the pricing.
Is the pricing, I don't want to exactly say dynamic, but I'll call it different. Like, for example, in your shipping to New York versus you ship to DC Metro, because that's how I live where I live, and I would get it from you guys. So would it be different pricing, or do you have one big uniform deal with Amazon, or do you have different pricing per locality based on whatever?
That's the very good question. That's the little bit of inside about the pricing side. I think that our transportation and the express or deliveries, the industry, we pricing our things based on the two things. One is based on distance, one is based on the weight. So USPS set up based on the distance, set up the different zone, right? Then the pricing is based on zone. Then we have the different based on the shipping rate. So that is the general term about it. Of course, for different customer, they have based on their characteristic, volume, where they go, all those things. There's different special price for them. So that is I don't know if I answered your question.
No, it does. Actually, I guess the one other thing I would ask about relative to that would be time. So, for example, Amazon, of course, is Amazon Prime. They guarantee, it's not really a guarantee, but let's say it's a commitment to 2-day delivery. Then there's delivery that sometimes occurs in one day, sometimes occurs in three. But it's in and around. Are you, when you're pricing, do they bring up time and commitment? And is there, let's say, not a bonus, or I don't know what to call it, a premium if you deliver a 2-day shipment in 1 day? Is there a penalty if you deliver a 2-day shipment in 3 days?
And this also
Such softball questions.
Yeah. Well, I'm really curious. I never understand how that pricing side works that well. It's just very hard.
That's the a couple of things in our industry. There's different products, right? So basically, it's called service level. So you have an express service level, you have ground service level. Our company is focused on the ground service.
Okay.
So we have a depends on where the origin come from,
Okay.
and the destination where we come from. For each zip code, we have a commitment time. So some of it's 1 day, some is 2 days. Very small number of it's 3 days.
Right.
Majority is in a 1 day time frame. So that is the commitment that we have.
Okay.
So that basically is so when the for the Amazon, they have different servers. I think some of them have the earlier morning, some of them. So we have we'll have a different service level. We arrange our operation accordingly. For the pricing standpoint, there's a different price accordingly.
So big question for me is, how does Pros help you do all that, and how long have you been using it?
We use the Pros about the relationship. I guess we have agreement about a year ago. We started use their smart CPQs since the November last year. Since we're about 6 months time period. The thing is, they help us because relatively we are not. I come from a big company, so they are not the big company. So they don't have a lot of the IT infrastructure support there. But Pro system, the smart CPQ, is off the shelf. They can plug in. It's our Salesforce. It's much easy to go in there. So we took about 4 or 5 months to integrate. Then we started to use that. And the big part is this. I guess I look at it from because I'm in charge of the pricing. I joined the company about 2 years ago when I just started. They doing about 1 a week or 10 days. So my sales folks always complain and say, "You guys are my bottleneck." Today, when I ask them, say anything from me, say, "No, it's not your problem. You're not bottleneck anymore.
Nice.
Somebody else's issue." So, of course, there is I build a new team for that. That's a different thing. Also, this Pro CPQ software help us. In the past, we are using Excel, email to do all those things. Now everything is in the Salesforce. It's in the Pro CPQ. So we have a workflow end to end from my pricing standpoint. So when sales submit a request in the Salesforce, I analyze that in the Salesforce and put it in the smart CPQ to see the result. Then they send me to review it. I send my boss to review it, approve it, come out, and everything sent through the approval reach. Everything is in the system. So that is the one thing we talk about in this meeting. Digitize, right? In the past, you don't know. The Prashant just showed me some of the report. They check what I do, my team is doing, who's doing what. In the past, I don't have that because I manage a team. I always ask me if you can't measure, you can manage it, right? I cannot manage that until today. And then they show me the report, say who did what, how much, how many they did, for how long time. All those things, Pros can track for me. I say, you need to send me this report that I can manage my team better. So that basically is now everything goes very smoothly in a workflow way. I can send my approval to my boss. He immediately approve back. We send it back to the salespeople. So I think there's one session here is a first pricing advantage. That is.
That's a real.
That's the thing, right?
Right.
I can get the request very fast back, and my salespeople can go to the customer get the business faster. So that is all those benefits we have with us, at least for the first 6 months we are doing it. So we are looking at talk to the people here, the pros and the people here. What after we have this conference, learn a lot of things. We can see it's going to be help us expand because our business is expanding. Our investor, our board is set a very high goal for us to achieve. In order to do that, we need a system.
Can are you surprised that this first price thing is such an important piece of this puzzle? Because I always thought like the best price, but it sounds like the first price, as long as it's in the ballpark, it must mean give you a pretty significant advantage of getting the deal.
Yeah, because a lot of time the customer also need it fast, right?
Yeah.
So you probably 3 of us have 3 deal. I get it first, then you get it 1 week later. You get it 2 weeks later.
Oh.
They may not wait for you. Maybe
Right.
maybe your deal is better. Maybe I'm just.
But if it comes like 3 weeks late,
yeah, because they already signed the contract, they'll move forward.
Yeah.
So that potentially going to be issue here. Of course, this is one factor, one variable here. But I think what are we talking about? The optimization, or we're talking about the AI thing. That's another big one for the future because today I always ask my salespeople, my team member to say, how do you know this price is right? And they say because customer accepted it and used it. I say, yeah, that's right or not right.
if the customer accepted it too fast, they'd be like, wait a minute, is that a good thing?
How do you know I did not leave the money on the table? So I also asked a question to Pro the day before that. I said, how your system going to tell me about that? So I listened to the Dr. Michael Wu's the session. He said, because this AI thing is a learning process. So you keep adding more data and more learning, and eventually you know that. It's not the static.
So
Right now it's static.
let me ask you a question then. So let's go back to first price advantage. So we established one thing, which is it's primarily not for the moment, put aside the fact that maybe the customer accepted a little too quickly. So it's basically a matter of time now, meaning, but here's my question. First price advantage, other companies competing, they know your price, they come in and undercut your price a week later, let's say, or even 10, let's say the customer's got a 2-week window, you come in 2 days, then ultimately there's 12 days for that other competitor to come in and undercut you. So my question was 2-part. One is pros related. Part one is knowing that, which you obviously do you, from a strategic standpoint, do you kind of say, okay, we're not going to do it in 2 days, we'll wait 4 days to limit the amount of time they have to come back, or do you really want to get it in day one? And then question 2 is, for the optimization side of the pricing itself, because the point Brent made earlier about within the ballpark, you still want to present first price as the best price too. I mean, you want to do that, and the best price for you and the customer. So 1 is strategy, and 2 is how to use pros to optimize the price of first price. Or do you?
Yeah, I think very good question. Since you had asked a 2-part, I was thinking 2 things here. One is a very important part is when we talk about pricing, we always talk about customer willing to pay.
Right.
So that part is very important because we are saying you have a lot of way to pricing, but value-based pricing is the most important one. So what exactly I can provide to my customer value, right? That is a very important part. So to answer that part is because when I have some pricing over there, the customer come back, another competitor come in to cut the pricing, that going to come back to say, what is the value we both have to provide? So if there is no differential on that part, what are we going to do? Then the next question is going to become the total competitive advantage of a company. Because the competitor come out this way, I have here, I come this way, I can come with this in the serial, right? But then it's going to be who can sustain this, right? Of course, everything else is the same, it's constant. So that's going to be an issue. So for that part, depends on your company. Some companies based on the cost as their advantage. Some companies based on differentiation their servers or product is going to be the quality. So that is heavily related to your company situation. To go back to the pros thing, because the pros, if you're using software, you can running very fast, right? So because, for example, you say 2 weeks time frame, use your example. I did 2 days, then they come back 1 week, cut my things. So they feedback to me, say, hey, your pricing is not competitive. I'm going to, in order to do that, if you need 3 weeks, you're out. If you have this first pricing and the first price of the capability, you have support from the pro software, this kind of thing, you can immediately respond. Depends on what you're going to do, right? That is what I'm thinking. The 3 things you can address the question for that.
I love that's the stuff I love. I know.
It's like the inside baseball of pricing.
We'll get to that later. So
I'm just curious. I mean, can you imagine doing all that stuff without a system? Because you were saying a lot of it was Excel and email. You can't go back after you started using this kind of stuff, right?
No. It's no way you can do that. No way you can do that. That's basically that thing is always I have the question, but reality we have business to run, right? So a lot of time is I cannot pursue that kind of level thing. I have to move on. I have to move forward. Whatever I have, Excel, email thing, I have to move forward to run the business. They may not. It's not optimized, right? As I say, we may lose certain things we should not lost, right? Then another thing is sometimes we probably leave a lot of money on the table. So I never know, but on my back of my head, I think that's there. But I don't have a system. I don't have anything to tell me. That's why I'm thinking this conference is important to expand my vision, to look at a different opportunity or different option we can to address that question. I think all the companies going to have the same questions that I have.
Let me sort of shift the subject a little. I mean, we've known pros a long time, really between 8 years really, and I mean I really love the company personally, and I do. And what about the relationship between you and Lasership with pros and the people of pros?
Yeah, I think the one we build the relationship. I think the account executive, Riley, and work with us, go through it, to have the people come over to address our issue and to learn what are we doing, what are our pain points. Then we start to, after we sign the contract, work on with us, their project developer team. It's very involved with us, right? So we work through that. It's very good relationship goes through it. I think that's very, because they always think to ask the question, what we can do for you to help you to be successful. That I think that is the mentality, is the customer first, right? So so we share them our vision, our plan, and see where they can help us. So that's the partnership. I think it's outstanding.
It's interesting you said that, you use the word partnership, because that's the one thing I've always noticed with pros customers. They don't think of it as we're the customer, we're the vendor. It's always seen as a partnership.
Yeah, they are not just to say, I sell you something.
Right.
Then they're gone.
Right? They always say, so what we can help you.
Yeah.
That is different.
And they're great about realizing their commitments.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think we're probably going to have to wrap it up, but
We have to, we do.
yeah, we got to do this.
Well,
One quick question before the final question. So what does the relationship and your use of pros look like a year from now? Coming out of this a year from now, before you come back again, what do you hope to have happen in between time?
Right now, I think the major issue for us is our internal side.
Oh.
Because the reason is we just merged, right? So our data source is right now the two companies is not connected. So we are in the process to merge and integrate a lot of things. So we need to have those because a lot of software pros using we refer here is based on transaction data.
Right.
We don't have that. We're available to use that
Oh.
because we have two different things. They have to merge it together. So I have to give the time for my IT folks to make that happen. Then I can go back to say I need to use this to optimize my pricing and how to use AR to get my pricing better, more intelligent. Because right now we don't have that. The system to intelligence tell us do other things. So most of it's still in here.
Okay.
So it's a lot of time it's not rational. A lot of time I talk to my boss, I said, the pricing we approve need to be rationalized. But how we do that? Right now we have to use human to do that. It's not
Oh,
it's not
wow.
easy to do.
Yeah, no, we'll definitely be doing a lot of
Well,
changing next
Yeah,
year.
maybe next year at
Outperform.
Outperform 2024, we'll talk to you and see how the last year is
Get
going.
the update.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hope that at that time I can report back to you guys. We get those things down, we move forward.
Awesome.
It looks like you will.
Yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure. Oh, we got to ask you one last question, but it's still been a pleasure
It's been
so
a pleasure,
far.
but it might not.
Yeah,
be.
maybe I might have to take my handshake back. It all depends on what happens here.
Okay.
All right. So, do you follow professional football? Do you have a favorite NFL team?
The first question, no. The second question is in the long time ago, while I was in graduate school, I mostly follow is a Cowboy.
Okay.
Don't beat me up.
No.
No.
You know, if you had said that to me like 20 years ago, we'd be scrapping right now.
I'll
But
say this:
I'm
you
okay with that.
survived the question.
Yeah.
That's the
There's
best
only
I can
one
say.
wrong answer, and that wasn't it. So it has been a
That's
pleasure.
right. It's been
Thank
a
you,
total
thank
pleasure.
you, thank
And
you.
by the way, the wrong answer: New England Patriots.
Oh,
We've already asked him that a long time ago.
Yeah, okay,
Right?
so he's
Thank
good to
you.
go.
He gets his pass.
thank you so
It's a
much.
real
Thanks
pleasure.
a lot. That we really appreciate
Thank
you
you.
taking time. All right. So 1 down, 2 to go, right?
I'm looking forward.
And well, this guy, do we really need to introduce him at this
No,
point?
at this point, I mean, I guess we probably should.
Okay.
We'll be taking a
Okay.
break.
Nah, I can handle that. But go ahead, give a little introduction while I.
Well, I mean, this is like an introduction to a family member, basically, right? I mean, Dr. Michael Wu, although obviously we all know him as Michael. Dr. Michael Wu and I go way back. I think Michael was about 11 when I met him. He used to work at Lithium, and early on, it was me and actually Esteban Kolsky read his work and thought the guy was a genius and decided we wanted to make him famous even though we weren't, right? And I'll never forget this, really. We started promoting him. Then I finally met him at Lithium and absolutely fell in love with him right away. Got to meet his spouse, Margie, fell in love with her right away. They got to meet
A lot of love going on.
Yeah, they're totally loved.
Right.
Got to meet Yvonne, my wife. All 4 of us became family immediately. And at the same time, Michael, over the years, was building his name and also his real genius at this in AI. And as one of the few humans on this planet who can explain AI to an ordinary human being who doesn't know anything about it, and they will end up learning exactly how it works. And
I'll
what
just
it
make
is.
one adjustment to that. He could explain it to a room full of like 1,000 or a couple of thousand people and do it.
And at the same time, he is genuinely a scientist. So
Yes.
he also is someone who can build these things, and he can develop the strategies for these things, and he can create the blueprints for them.
You know what?
So-
I think it's just time to bring him
Yeah,
on.
just come on, sit down, man.
Because he's got
Just sit down.
It's been 4 years without the cool cap.
I
mean,
know.
It's so cool to see.
You still have that picture with Margie, man, with you and me and Margie wearing that cap.
Here, we're
Is
gonna
that
mic yourself up there.
Yeah.
So the people and
Can
put
you-
up high so people could hear you.
Yeah.
I can't see myself. Can you help?
Okay, Mikey. Okay. No, you're not.
How many people does it take? There,
All right.
that might
Thank
be a
you.
little too high.
Yeah, is it? A little high?
Put
Okay,
it,
we're
put it
taking
right
it down.
on his lapel, a little lower there.
I'll bring it down to the side of the lapel, the thicker side. I think it'll hold.
All right.
Thank
How
you.
about
Yeah.
now?
I always have trouble with this because
No.
I can't see myself.
No, I know.
I'm like clipping all the places. Wrong
It
places.
works beautifully, man. Don't worry, you're good. So, needs to say, you're pros now. Been in pros several years.
Mhm.
You presented yesterday and you did an amazing presentation, which was basically what we were just talking about,
Yep.
was your ability to explain an incredibly difficult subject, and you called it that, to an audience of, I don't know, 500-600
Yeah,
people maybe. And they pretty much all walked out there understanding what it was. So the question is, but the big question that was not really totally part of it, where's all this going to go? I mean, really, because it's, as you know, and as we all know, it's a huge topic. The genie's out of the bottle completely. It's not like, what was it, Clubhouse, right, which was popular for about 15 minutes and then died, as we all predicted. This is a done deal. All right.
Can I just add a little addendum to this?
Yeah, a big addendum.
Okay, a big giant addendum here.
All right.
No, because we were talking to Alan Treffler last week, and we asked him, "Are you surprised that it seemed like overnight this generative AI thing just took over everything?" Now you've been working in AI for years.
Yeah.
Are you surprised at how quickly that part of it just caught on and
Yeah.
seemed to captivate everybody?
I think that speed of how it took off was a little surprising because so as I said yesterday, that a lot of these generative AI are not new. In fact, the transformer architecture that was used to model this large language model were invented in, I think, 2017. And they, I think, technology like large language model has actually existed. That's what, similar type of technologies power your Siri, your Google Assistant, your Alexa, so, and I find this, success of ChatGPT a little bit accidental, because a lot of, and I think they got a few things right,
Okay.
and I'm not sure if it's by design or accidental, because I want to very talk a little bit about that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, because so there's nothing that prevents, I would say, Google, Alexa, or Amazon, right, to essentially build this type of large language model. I think, but somehow having a voice actually prevented these, I would say, chatbot to be prevented them from being verbose. Okay, so I mean, when you don't have a voice, right, you can be much more verbose, and this verbosity is actually important because it allows the chatbot to be much more expressive, right? So if you only allow 30 seconds, right, you can be very expressive. You can really express yourself, right? But if you are given a long kind of a form, then you can be much more expressive, right? So that's important because it actually allows people to connect with this technology a lot better, right? However, the lack of a voice is actually advantageous here because think about your Alexa at home, right? How annoying it would be if it's only half as verbose as ChatGPT.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, every time if you started to say something more than a few seconds, you stop.
People turn off to me all the time. I'm really verbose.
Yeah, so I think so I'm not sure if it's a kind of accidental or I feel it's a little accidental, right? So the fact that they they're so verbose and the fact that there's no voice to it, right? So the verbosity keeps it the ability to expressive, right, and allow people to connect to it a lot better, right? And when you don't have a voice, right, you don't annoy people, right? Kind of because somehow that robotic kind of voice of whether it's no matter how much human like it is, it's still kind of annoying.
I don't think it's just. I mean, to that point, I don't think it's just a robotic voice. I think when you're hearing Alexa or somebody, and let's say they're giving you a long answer, you don't choose the length of time they're giving you that answer.
That's right.
When you're reading, you
choose
it.
the time.
You
That's
choose
right.
how much time you're spending, right?
That's
And
right.
that's a big difference.
That's right. Yeah. And when you don't have a voice, I think very often when you're reading something long, right, you fill in the voice. Right?
Exactly.
Whatever character you may be portraying, right, it's like reading a novel, right?
Yep.
You can kind of fill in that voice and give it a character, right? So you create that connection, right? And once you have that connection,
people kind of latch on, and that's what kind of spread like wildfire, I think. So that I feel is a little accidental.
Sure.
Right? Yeah.
Makes sense. So,
Yeah.
so here's the thing. I mean, initially, when we looked at ChatGPT, it was being used as a giant toy, basically, and people were playing with it. That's what they were doing. Now, of course, what I was sort of amazed at is how quickly the use cases generated. There's probably millions of it by now, but at least there are thousands. I mean,
Sure.
they're just an astonishing number of use cases.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I found interesting about what you guys are doing, however, was on the one hand, you've had a fairly long history of prescriptive AI. And you didn't say, okay, we're dumping prescriptive AI and now we're going to be generative AI. You have generative AI, you use it, and you create it and use it, I should say. But at the same time, you've married it to the prescriptive. And I found that, first of all, unique. I haven't heard anyone else say that. And secondly, really important. So can you kind of elaborate a little on that?
Yeah, I think that the whole thing about this marrying the two is it's almost like a perfect marriage because, as I mentioned yesterday, that it's very complementary, right? So, ChatGPT, the fact that it, GPT, right, so for generative pre-trained transformer, right? So it had to be pre-trained, right? So anytime you're going to use it, it's actually pre-trained with some data, but all these are trained with data in the past, right? So, which is trained with lots of data. So it's very, very broad knowledge, but they're all in the past, right? But the algorithm that pros built, right, and typically are forecasting, prescriptive, analytics, prescriptive AIs that are about the future, willingness to pay. Everything is about now and the future, right? But we are much more domain specific. So it's very narrow knowledge, but about the future, right? So basically, it's a perfect. There's no kind of conflict or kind of overlap in any way,
Which
right?
is
So
fantastic.
so you can actually use this, predictive type of prescriptive type of algorithm to tell you about the future, what you should do, and then give that, kind of those results to ChatGPT and have it kind of summarize and present it in a way that's kind of much more, I would say, readable. So
one of the things you talked about yesterday, and I'm going to need you to do it again. You talked about because of kind of the built-in features of generative AI, it generates things that we haven't seen, or can generate things that we haven't seen, like images and things, which is a good thing when you're trying to to have somebody describe they want this kind of image with it, and it comes out of nowhere.
That's right.
But then the flip side is when you ask, just for this example, ChatGPT about, I think you talked about one of the, one of your product lines.
Yep, everyone knows.
And it starts naming off stuff that hasn't been created yet.
Yeah, never even existed ever.
Hallucinatory. I love that.
So that hallucination, it works on the kind of the artsy graphic side, not so much on the the actual script text side. But you came up with a term, and if you could tell us what the term is and how that term could help get rid of, or at least lessen some of the hallucinations that really don't work.
Yeah. So hallucination, as I said, it's a built-in feature for generative AI, right? In fact, the generative nature of generative AI is hallucinative, right? I mean, so it's just that, when you have, so I talk about this notion of probability distribution of the word, right? So just bear with me a little bit. So when the data, when there is data, right, they are going to generate something that's similar, right? But when there's no data, right, it can still generate something. It's very low probability because data, there's no, think about the Gaussian distribution I talk about, right? The Gaussian distribution is never zero anywhere, right? So everything is possible, right? But if you look at the empirical data, there are some places where there's no data, right? So if you, so if you sample from the true Gaussian, right, you can literally, every possible number is possible from negative infinity to infinity. It's not very likely, but it's possible, right? So that's the underlying secret sauce of all generative AI. Is the non-zero probability of generating something that it had never seen before in your data. In the data is zero probability, but is in the real distribution that you sample from, that you generate from, is non-zero probability. It's possible, right? It's just seen as a possibility, right? And because of that, it's generative, right? It makes up things, right? It's never existed in data. It make up stuff, right, that never existed before. So that's why it hallucinates. So by construction, it will hallucinate, right? So how do you get around that? That's so there's, I would say, the one obvious way is to kind of you set all the zero probability region to zero, right? But then you don't have a generative AI anymore, right? Because the whole point of generative AI is to generate stuff that was never existed, right? But so I talk about whether it's a bug or a feature, right? So for design or creative application is definitely a huge feature, right? But for fact-based application, right, that's a problem, right? So but for fact-based application, we need other additional technology around it to put guardrails around it, right? To kind of not really prevent it, but really not use its generative nature, right? So you basically, the guardrails is usually, the example that I give is, for example, like Bing search, right? It's using the plain old Bing search as the heavy lifting information retrieval engine, right? Basically, if you query for something, you type in a term and you query for something. If it finds it, right, and it's going to take what it finds and then give it to ChatGPT and have it summarized, so it can actually tell you what it is. But if it didn't find anything, then you should just not give it to ChatGPT and just tell you that it didn't find anything, right? So this is what we call retrieval augmented generation, right? So RAG, right? So it's using information retrieval to do the heavy lifting to find the information, right? If it didn't find it, then that means it doesn't exist, right? Then you should tell you that it didn't exist, and not give it to ChatGPT, because if you give it to ChatGPT, then it's going to make up stuff, right? So, yeah.
So I guess two things. Back in the early days of ChatGPT coming out, and then Bing, the Microsoft version, let's call it, before the open, AI alliance. If you remember, some of the Microsoft questions kind of the results went off the rails completely. They were threatening people, right? I mean, it sounded like a sentient being that was going to kill you. I mean, well, it obviously wasn't one. But the question is, I mean, to me, that was not just hallucinatory, but it was like the thing of taking a hallucinogenic, right? So the question is, does that still fall within the hallucination?
Sure.
But why would it turn out with like an emotional attack or seeming emotion?
Yeah, because I think that comes in the pre-prompt, the prompt that because sometimes the prompt was not, I would say, because the prompt is basically, keep in mind, this ChatGPT, it really is just trying to find, plausible word continuations, right? Just whatever text you give it, it's going to continue filling that blank, and filling one word at a time. And once you get that a longer, sequence, it goes into the generate the next word, and then generate the next word. So it gets so whatever that you give it at the beginning, right, is crucial, right? So you could fool kind of ChatGPT to some, for example, tell it, okay, be a mean, crazy, person, and then it will behave like that. And then you actually, try to, until you tell them they forget this, now you are a nice, helpful assistant, then
hypnotized.
Hypnotized.
Right, it was basically hypnotized.
Yeah.
The second question, and this is a totally different question. Last week at ServiceNow, they were talking about their generative AI work, and at one point they started talking about, I said, look, not everything needs a large language model. They said, and they were talking, which actually they were the only company I heard that actually is talking about, and they began talking about small language models. And some, in their case, some of it was industry specific. In fact, a lot of it was. I'm wondering your thinking on that, and use cases that say might, in the case of pros or anywhere, might be, you think, important to just a small language model.
Yeah, I mean, a small language model or large language, I actually don't like this characterizing, because they really are just language models, right? I mean, it's how big of a data set you use to train it, and how much parameter there is to kind of to tune when you actually train those models, right? So that's the only thing. If you have a lot of it, then it's a large language model. If you don't have a lot of it, then it's smaller. So, but where do you draw the line, large and small, right? I mean, it's kind of, I mean, they train it with 500 billion, tokens, right? But it's like 400 billion tokens, small one, or is it like one? I mean, so I just, very often I just treat these like big data. I really don't like that term. Big data is just data.
So
More
it's
of it.
really it's really data specific language models.
Yeah, I think that's probably more
Yeah.
it should be say.
All right.
Should be because you train it. So the beauty of this pre-training process, right? The GPT, the P in the GPT, that pre-train means that it knows all the grammar, and all the languages out there, right? So you don't need to actually learn these other things, right? You don't need to spend your data to learn those other things they already know, right? So you can actually focus on. So that's what enable. So yes, I think one of the VP from Microsoft mentioned this few-shot learning or one-shot learning. These are kind of things that that's enabled essentially by this pre-training process, right? Before, if you were to train a language model, you would need to use a lot of data, right? And you don't want to use your industry-specific data to do that because that's wasteful. You don't have a lot of industry-specific data. So so the pre-training of this ChatGPT or this or just GPT in general or any other large language model is that you use just a large corpus of general text to teach them language, grammar, syntax, and all these other things, right? So he knows all this stuff, right? Now you can actually once you know that, right? Then you could just use your industry-specific data to train it to learn the jargons of your industry or whatever kind of term means have a specific meaning, right, in your industry. So those are kind of then you don't need to give them that many examples, right? You could use that's why the few shot. It's just, you just need to show them a few examples, they will know it, right? It's the same thing as, for example, if you teach a kid who a foreign language, right? When he have absolutely no exposure to it, right? He needs to learn everything from start, right? But once you learn that, have a solid understanding of language, and you just tell him that, okay, don't be mean, don't be or be nice, or he'll know what that means and behave accordingly, right? So, and if you tell him like this in this industry, this means that he'll get it. Only a few times. Maybe he'll forget a few times, but if you tell him like a couple of times, so 2-shot learning, 3-shot learning is enough. He will remember.
That's
right?
with drinking game, right?
So there's lots of people around, and almost every person that has been on stage has kind of referenced your conversation or your presentation. So I know people are asking you a lot of stuff. What are the things that people are asking you the most about in this area?
Yeah, I mean, mainly around kind of use cases. Like I think we certainly internally approach. A lot of people say, can we use this internally? Can we use it for HR? Can we use it for the professional services? So that a lot of people are very excited about this technology. So I am working with our engineering team. To AJ, who runs our engineering team, to replicate this pattern. Because right now we build it essentially for our product, right? Using the knowledge base that we have in our system. That's open for our customers, right? So, but really that pattern is very, very similar, right? You just point into a different data source, right? Different knowledge base, right? So, and then you have it. All of a sudden, you have a ChatGPT that can answer your HR question, or a ChatGPT can answer your PS question, or generate configurations for deployment and so on. So, yeah. So that's kind of more internally approach. Externally, it's just like, I would say there are lots of these use case questions as well, but there's also a lot of worry around, what can it do, what will it do to the industry in general, especially the creative industry and the disruption it created, even just for writing. I mean, writer, and on all that. It's a bit, I would say, mixed. I would say some people are excited about it, and but a lot of people are actually quite
Concerned.
Concerned and afraid that there might be just displacement of their job.
Didn't that gentleman from Google that they called the doctor or the founder or godfather of AI or something like that?
That's right.
He
Jeffrey
walked
Hinton?
away. Yeah, he walked away because he was kind of apprehensive about where things were going.
I think he was apprehensive about sentience.
Yeah.
Which I mean, I have a hard time with that one completely.
Well, I think we it doesn't need to get to sentient.
I don't think it will either. But
Well, I mean, whether it will or not, I think it's a little bit philosophical.
Yeah.
But then I do think the worry is legitimate. And
Do you have that concern or worry?
I do.
Okay.
I do. And I think that, AI, as with any tool, right, it could fall into the wrong hands.
Right.
And that's
Well,
where the danger it can
Again,
be.
to your point, it's
Yeah.
a tool, though. And I remember Brent's heard me say this probably 28,000 times already. But
Yankees?
no, Schwartz, what's his name?
Schwartz.
The guy from MetaMind.
Robert Social.
Robert Soch, right.
Mm.
So he's Richard Soch. He's running yes.com,
Mm,
right?
okay.
Yes.com has a ChatGPT kind of AI function. He was the CEO and founder of MetaMind. And when he went, they were acquired by Salesforce. And when at Salesforce, he said an interesting question. I'm kind of curious, or he made an interesting point. I'm kind of curious what you think. He said, AI doesn't want anything. That was the way he put it. AI doesn't. What he meant, this is his explanation afterwards. He said, look, ultimately AI learns, but you have to direct it to where it's going to go learn. And that's what he meant.
So I would say that for certain kinds of AI, yes, right? For I think he said that a while ago,
Yeah, he
and
did.
that
It was about 4 years ago.
Yeah, I think supervised learning is still kind of the majority of the application in business. It's where that was 4 years ago, and I think that's true with that framework, with the supervised learning framework. And you do need to specify an objective function, or what is the goal, what's the objective, right? So in that respect, yes, I don't think we have to worry about that, right? But when you talk about generative AI and the possibility of creating things that never existed before, right? Then I think there's a little bit more to worry about, right? Creating text, sure, no harm, right? I mean, creating images, maybe fun, maybe maybe some people. I mean, I think there was a news that some image generator created a picture of an explosion
Pentagon.
in the Pentagon,
Yeah.
right? So that caused some scare market, right? So
Deep
so
fake.
deep fake it, right? So that's some damage, right? But what happens when you created a new molecule or drug or something, right? That and that people could they could mix these things at home or something like that, right? And that could it could be very, very scary.
Well, that part to your that Chris Duffy, if you remember, that was the world he was in the early days. Chris Duffy's the futurist of Adobe, and his early days were actually more VR and AR for new drugs, right? And he brought up AI creating drugs, right? I guess the question is, to the point of supervised or unsupervised, really. I mean, if AI on its own creates a drug, but I guess the question is, AI on its own might create a drug, but how does it can't manufacture it or distribute it?
Yeah, so I think that's not the problem. I'm saying, like, if a bad actor asks this AI to create a drug, right, and that that's like I said, it's always I would say that it usually is some
There's
bad
a human behind it.
The
AI might not want anything, but the human
Yeah.
might want
Right.
something.
That was the point. I think that still goes to Richard's point. Richard. I have a hard time with his name because it's still a human directing AI to do something, and ultimately it's still dependent on that. I mean, AI could theoretically, if AI achieved this quasi or pseudo sentience, it could create a drug. But again,
well, he needs robotic. He needs hand to
that's
mix
the point.
It
It can create the
formula.
the formula for the drug. It can't manufacture or distribute the drug, right? Not yet. Right? Maybe robots can do that someday.
In the future,
But then the AI would have to organize the robots.
Well, you know
right?
what?
So then we're at Skynet.
But at the enterprise, what we're
we're
here,
Skynet.
people get excited about being able to have something make it easy for them to write, response.
I know.
It's just, so all this other stuff is crazy, but people are really excited about some of the more mundane things that this can do that takes it off their plate and allows them to actually focus more on the stuff that's important.
Well, I think, to be honest, the fact that Microsoft and Adobe were very careful on how they pose it with Copilot, and I actually think that's a great term for what it is. It's the best possible term, because it is something that can enhance and support what a human does and improve what a human does. And there will be some, at some point, AI and robotics and so on will probably replace some job categories, but that happens in every single industrial
Yeah.
revolution we ever have had.
Yeah, and in every single industrial revolution or every innovation that we create,
Right.
in the long run, they always creates more jobs.
Of course.
Right.
So
That's the
The net
ultimate
is
point.
more, yeah.
Yeah.
So
The
what
ultimate
about like a year from now? What do you? I mean, this last year has been kind of crazy. What do you think this next year has in store for this area? I mean, should we be asking ChatGPT to make stuff up?
I don't have a crystal ball, but I would say that there probably will be some regulatory body created
Yeah, I agree.
to kind of regulate the development, or I would say maybe not development, but I would say like the use case of these type of technology, right? I mean, certainly it should not be used in weaponry or
Right.
maybe you need a license to in certain domain, like if you want to use it for creating new molecules or something,
Right.
new
Yeah.
drugs, or so I think there need to be some kind of regulation. I think that will be in the foreseeable future. That's I actually support that.
Me
I
too.
actually very
too.
much and and this whole notion of like bias, we need to deal with that. It's like because these AI are trained with like writings from human, right? And
Right.
we humans are biased, right? So you actually, each one of us may be just a little bit biased. So it's like kind of hard to see that bias, right? I mean, so it's like when you look at a small sample, if I have a biased coin, right? If I flip it 10 times, right? You're not going to know that if it's a biased coin or not, right? But if you flip it a 1,000 times, right? Or 100,000 times, right? Then you could see that if it's a slightly biased, you would know it, right?
Yep.
So the thing is that AI is learning from millions of people who write things, right? On the
Right.
web or to publish papers on scientific journals and books, right? So all this and Wikipedia, right? So all these are human writing. So it picks up on everybody's slight bias and actually can magnify those. And so so the fact that we are slightly biased in some way, right? That gets translated to could translate to fairly significant levels of bias in these type of AI.
One of the AI actually probably existed when I went to school, but because it was Dartmouth in the 50s, and I was not I'm not that right. So, but when I went to school, one of the things we were always taught in journalism school to be unbiased. But the best teacher I ever had was this guy Alfred Ames, and he was the editorial director of the Chicago Tribune, and he said, "Look, there's no such thing as unbiased journalism." He said, "I'm an editor." He said, "I'm the editorial director." He runs, he said, "I choose what page things go on." He said, "If you think there's no bias in that, you're crazy," right? He said, "What goes on page 1 and what goes on page 3," he said, "Another person here, reverse it completely," right? So bias is, you live with it, right? And you just know it. And if you live with it and know it, you can deal with it. Because to your point, at some point it shows.
Yeah. So the challenge with these chat GPT type of technologies are like it says things in such an authoritative tone,
Right.
That it's hard for people who don't know, right? So the example that I gave yesterday, right? And if I say, tell me the names of all the Evermundo product, right? And you actually get 2 of them, right? Which is, when
Like 4 or 5 that they made up.
Yeah. So the 2 of them, where the data exists, it does match real data, right? But where the data doesn't exist, it's generated, and it actually generated really well. It actually matches. It has that air something in the prefix, right, to mimic the names of those products, right? And you say that's so authoritative, right? If you don't know that company, you know what, you would probably call them up, hey, right? That looks like a product.
Actually, to your exact point, it's a true story. I guess we have to close with this, but at one point I asked, I think it was ChatGPT, I think, or maybe it was the U.com equivalent about CRM in my history and with Brent. And here's what it had. It said, "I started work at Siebel. I met Brent at IBM." Right?
I never worked at IBM, by the way.
And when you read this bio, it sounded absolutely perfectly legitimate.
I had enough real truths sprinkled in with
it
the
was
nonsense.
Unbelievably well. It was, what it is it's not, doesn't really have a voice. It's just a well-crafted biography. So
like I said,
point.
it's really word continuation, right? Plausible continuation. So you construct really perfect sentences, right? But where where data exists, it will match.
Yeah.
Right.
But where data doesn't exist, it's going to mix
It'll
things
mix
up.
things up.
Right?
And it
You'll
did a
mix-
good
and then
job
with
there.
lower, with not very high probability, but you will make.
No, it would have been better if it said I would work for the Rams or something. Michael, we're gonna have to let you go, but thanks again, man. It's such a pleasure seeing you.
Likewise,
Always,
likewise.
man.
Hey,
See hug. That's okay. We can pull it off.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
We'll
Thank
see you
you.
actually very short.
People are starting to form. They're clamoring. They need to. Oh, what about his mic?
Oh,
Oh
okay.
yeah.
All right.
My mic is still attached. So
Okay, I've got it.
You got it. Let me
good.
do a quick.
let me-
Got some.
thank you.
All right, my friend. See you soon.
Got a couple of folks with some comments here.
Okay.
Got to go to our buddy Sven. He's just saying, "Hi, friends. Hi, Sven. Good to hear from you." Shahil.
What language was it in, by the way?
It was just English, so that was kind of
okay.
easy.
Wow, that's hot.
Sahil says, "Beautiful setup. It is. It's a nice
Yeah.
hookup." Back
So
here.
Sahil's calling, watching from India.
Wow. And Alan is watching from somewhere because he doesn't have a house anymore.
That's right.
Brings me back to my computer science days and the traveling salesman problems he was talking a little bit about.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Cool. All right. Cool stuff.
All right.
It's always good catching up with
Always. One of the best ever.
absolutely. All right. So I think we're ready for our final guest,
Let
right?
me make sure that we keep that off the chair until he gets here.
And this is, I think, the guy with, I'm going to say, has the coolest name in the industry right now. Because we've had Clayton Bass. He had the cool name for it. It's still his name. It's cool. And it seemed like that Jim Goldfinger.
Yeah.
That was a cool name. But Grad Conn. I mean, that.
I know. Although if
That's
ChatGPT would say
That's
he
me.
was a graduate of the University of Connecticut.
It doesn't. Actually.
It doesn't?
No. If
Wait,
you
wait.
ask-
Wait. Let's get this on. Wait, I'll tell you. Put it on your. Oh, right. Well, no, that way won't work. Wait.
As long as we don't have any wardrobe malfunctions.
Okay.
Or anything,
All right.
we're good to go.
No, I use GPT-4, but I'll ask GPT-4 to write things in my voice.
Right.
And I just say Grad Conn. It doesn't never thinks it's Graduate Connecticut. It's always because I've written so much,
Uh-huh.
and so it pulls all my blog posts for the last 20 years, and it's like it knows how to write like me.
Oh, well,
So
then
my last blog post that's on Copernican Shift is actually written 100% by GPT-4.
wow.
And it sounds just like me because it's based on
It picked your actual
hundreds
voice
and
up.
hundreds and hundreds of blog
But
posts.
it's picked.
It knows
You
my
look,
voice.
even with that, that's it really interesting. Because look, of course, I've written a lot too, and the first thing you ever learn about writing is find your voice,
Right.
right? And it's
Yeah.
the most important thing about writing. Some people it takes years, some people it takes months, whatever. So if the actual AI can pick up and actually reproduce someone's voice, now I am actually scared.
If he's
right?
happy with what it produced for him,
I made no changes.
that's kind of scary.
I think the in the voice thing's my favorite part of it. So I'm currently in the process of rebuilding and rewriting the website. And one thing I've always wanted is I'm a big fan of advertising history. People like Claude
Claude,
Hopkins and John Caples and
All the mad
David
folks.
Ogilvy and all the people who kind of created the industry, but also some people that Sam Selleck and people you're not as familiar with. But there's all sorts of Jane Moss. Like there's a lot of really interesting writers out there, and I've always regretted that I was born too late to work with them. My father did. My father was a madman on Madison Avenue, but I didn't get a chance to do that, and now I do. So what I'll do is I'll write a sort of a barf sentence. I don't know if writer, do you ever use that?
It's a barf
No.
sentence.
So when writers who write a lot, they call it barfing it out. So you just barf it out. You don't worry about making it sound good or just,
well, yeah, I
just
know
like
that idea.
get it on the page,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I never
So I'll write a
called it a
barf sentence, and then I'll take that, which will be conceptually correct, right? I'll have the things I want to say in it, and then I'll put that into GPT-4. GPT-5 is coming up, by the way,
How soon?
June.
Wow.
Yeah,
Come
buckle
on.
up.
Yeah.
Buckle up. It's supposed to be like it's going to have multimodal capabilities. So we basically I put it in, and then I'll say in the voice of. I'll say rewrite this as a shorter headline in the voice of David Ogilvy. It gives me a David Ogilvy headline, or then I'll say Bill Bernbach or what. And so it gives me the headlines, and then I look at them, and one's usually like where I want to go, and then I might edit it slightly, and then in the website it goes.
Wow. Let me ask you this though. It gives you that. But do you feel a little bit cheated because you know it's not David Ogilvy doing this?
No, it is David Ogilvy. That's the thing. So basically,
Uh-oh.
no, well, because
We're
it's
heading to sentience.
no. The sentient thing, don't
I'm
be
kidding.
fooled by
I'm
that.
just joking.
But it is based on all of David Ogilvy's writings, right? There's a lot of.
Yeah.
This is kind of how he would say that thing. Like there's one of our sessions here, the session that was Linda Simovich, who was the
Opening keynote.
Chief Product Officer for Microsoft Dynamics. So she was having a little trouble getting to writing her session abstract and title. She's, I'm just jammed. Can you help me out? And so I said, sure. So I thought, it'll be a really cool session. I've always loved the revolution will be televised. It's an old expression from the 60s. And so I said, write me a headline like the revolution will be televised, but about AI and the latest developments in dynamics in the voice of Andy Warhol.
Wow.
And the session title that's in our is exactly what GPT-4 generated, and it's a pretty awesome title. Okay, and then the session abstract is also primarily generated that way with some editing. Right.
All right, but did ChatGPT give you the idea to send us donuts from your keynote presentation?
That came from
that,
this.
that was the first time that ever happened. There it is.
That was the most best thing
That was the
ever.
best
I will tell you why.
First keynote. You gotta get
No,
something.
but it was not that. It was also the choice of donuts.
Oh,
Homer
yeah.
donuts.
Voodoo.
No,
Homer donuts?
voodoo
Oh, voodoo.
donuts.
Yes.
Voodoo Homer donuts.
When we
Can't go wrong.
typically when you do a Zoho analyst day, you go to Austin.
Yeah.
Austin.
Yeah.
The first time I went there for Zoho analyst was last year, right?
Yeah.
When we went.
Yeah.
Right, and we did that whole thing. I discovered Voodoo Donuts.
Yeah.
So I literally would go at 10:30 at night and go buy Voodoo Donuts and bring them back to the hotel and eat them.
That's
I
awesome.
went to Austin again. What was it? About a month ago,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I literally had DoorDash delivered Voodoo Donuts to my
Wow,
room.
you're
That's how
dedicated.
good
Okay.
I am.
Oh, well,
They
well,
are that
I
good.
picked well.
And I
Okay.
noticed when I was walking through the Denver airport that up there is a Voodoo. I didn't stop because I had to get to the car, but there was a Voodoo Donuts thing. And on my way back today, if I have a minute, I'm stopping up there
Well, I
and taking a look. That was such
It's a
an
mark of city
inspired-
coolness, I think. Like
Oh,
New
my
York
God.
doesn't have Voodoo Donuts.
No.
And
I mean, I didn't know
it started
Denver
in
did.
Portland. It started in Portland,
Yeah.
and I spent a lot of years in Seattle working. When I was working at Microsoft, I lived in Seattle and Redmond, and so we would often go to Portland because we were working closely with Nike, and so that's how I got introduced to Voodoo. And I originally got introduced to. Let me see if this resonates.
Okay.
So my original Voodoo donut. The Homer is my go-to now,
Okay.
but the original Voodoo donut that I kind of fell in love with was the bacon maple
Ooh,
bar.
Yep.
You-
They still. Oh, I had it.
I
That
mean,
was
I
what I
had
had.
that one.
Bacon maple
I had
bar,
that.
My God.
2022
It's
and
not right.
this year
It's
too.
not right.
It's-
It's not right.
But it's
Should
unbelievably
be like a
good.
label. It is unbelievably good and
Unbelievable.
unbelievably bad.
That is the best donut place I have ever been to. So that was,
So-
and we were luckily enough sitting at one of those tables.
Oh, I'm
So-
glad you're good.
The Copernican theme was cool.
Yes.
The donuts really brought it home.
Oh,
So-
I'm glad I picked something that worked.
All right, so you mentioned you Microsoft.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of synergies, a lot of things going on. Talk a little bit about the partnership with Microsoft.
Well, we've had a partnership with Microsoft going back decades. We actually were one of the very first companies to get on the new SQL stack, way before it was as robust as it is today. So we moved off Oracle probably in 2008. That's very early. So that's when SQL is becoming enterprise ready.
Right.
And now SQL's very, very robust, but SQL was really more of a toy at that time. And Andres led the vision for that because he knew that he would be able to scale and bring costs way down. And he believed in the Microsoft roadmap. So the relationship goes back a long time. The relationship with Azure, so we are an Azure-based application, that precedes me. What I've been doing and what my team has sort of brought to play is I've been sort of advocating for a go-to-market motion with Microsoft. And so my team, Scott Cheney leads my partner team. Scott has done an amazing job of getting us in their marketplaces. So we're fully transactable. So there's kind of 5 levels. So we're level 5 transactable in the marketplace. So you can fully buy it. We just launched a CPQ that runs on Power Apps only. So you don't need to have a CRM system. but it uses the data schema of CRM, Dynamic CRM. So if you do go from Power Apps to Dynamic CRM, it's an elegant upgrade without any re-implementation required. So that's a very tricky thing to do, and that just I'm not going to all the details, but no one had ever done that before, and so there's a new SKU that Microsoft created because it's kind of two licenses, right?
Okay.
It's a Power Apps license, there's a Dynamics license.
Yeah.
So obviously you don't want to do that. So we figured that out. What Linda was talked about a little bit is that the Viva Sales motion.
Yeah.
So we're working very closely with them, getting our predictive AI into that large language model stuff in Viva Sales. And we have been approved as a direct reseller of Microsoft products, only one of 7 direct resellers in the world now. So there's a lot going on there, and that's like the GTM motion. And what preceded me was the technical and product integration motion, primarily led by Andres, and then we've been kind of going from there.
Yeah, I mean, it's you guys. Microsoft's been a long-standing client of mine, in addition to everything else, and on their end. And this goes back probably, let's see, when did I get introduced? Whenever I was introduced to pros 8 years ago.
Is that all? It seems like it's been longer.
Maybe it is a little long. When they entered CRM watch list years ago.
Dewey Forrester?
Dewey was actually at pros and getting ready to leave it. Right?
Yeah.
It was like within a year. I knew him a long time ago.
Dewey was the one who got me interested in working at Microsoft. And he had contacted me on an M&A transaction with a startup I was running, and he was part of that group. And then I got to know Dewey really well, and then Mike Glass, which was one of his friends, and to the point where our families would get together and
just
do
hang
dueling
buddies,
violins together and stuff like that. So Dewey's an amazing person, but he ran that partner motion.
Yeah.
He actually did a lot of the early work of getting the GTM stuff started.
Yeah, I mean, on the Microsoft side, they have always had an extremely high regard for pros. I mean, unusually high, actually, because I
would say appropriately high.
Well, I happen to be with you on that one. To tell you the truth,
now, it's like easy.
No, I actually agree with you. I mean, the partner community at Microsoft is big, diverse, and especially it used to be extremely entitled.
I ran a lot of those
right.
systems
So you know how
there.
entitled the partner community felt because there was so much being given by Microsoft to it.
Big billions, literally.
Yeah. Oh, I literally,
it's incredible.
A story to tell later is one time I literally yelled at the partner community for bitching about Microsoft because I said you have no right to do that, right? But
it's like children,
Well,
you can never really give them enough.
You know what? But you also had great partners. But the pros relationship, from the first I heard of it, was always like this very high regard, and there was always a commitment to wanting to move forward in some way. Originally, they didn't know how. Like now they know how, obviously.
Yeah. Well, I think there's changes occurring at Microsoft. We're continuing to grow and expand, and the business is continuing to accelerate. I will say one thing that I would observe is that the cultures between Microsoft and pros are very similar, like almost shockingly similar to me. So, because they're both very strong engineering-led cultures.
Yep.
They're both very strong employee loyalty cultures. Like the average length of tenure at pros is more than 5 years.
I know.
So you've got, I just passed my 1 year mark, and it went by without even a whisper. And I made a comment in a meeting. I said, hey, I've been here a year now. And I'm just like, yeah. What's the big deal? Call me when you've been here 20 years. I'm really excited about it. And so I think there's this, and of course, at Microsoft, same thing. You have people who've been there a very long time, very loyal to the company. So I think culturally, it's very easy for pros people and Microsoft people to talk. I think but that being said, we do have many other partners, right? I do think we could have a much deeper relationship with SAP. And that's something we need to build out, and we don't have as much of that right now as I'd like. We have great relationships with a lot of the big SIs, so Accenture and EY are great examples. And we're building some newer relationships with Horvath, who are here at the event, and other sort of regional and sort of industry SIs who see their, so I think Horvath did a great presentation yesterday on the 7 things to do when you're making a pricing transformation. So we've got there's a lot of partner motions going in the group. We've got this sort of 9 square matrix of all the different sort of things. But the Microsoft one is kind of exciting and bouncy, just partly because we're an Azure partner. the more we grow, the more dials we spin for them. We're a very heavy compute application, so we're very attractive as your partner. We're one of the biggest ones in the world. Globally, we are the big 3 trillion transactions. Really,
I know.
So you like to say that number.
3 trillion.
That is a
Going to 4.
big
Going to 4.
number.
It's a big number. Yeah.
So, okay, so now let's look at on the marketing side of pros, because one of the things that's fascinated me, look, when I first started advising the company and stuff, I said, look, you're an AI company. You already have the most amazing AI platform I've ever seen in my life. And that really is true. To this day, I still hold that, even with all the advances of other AI platforms. I also, they were at that point, they were the dominant pricing optimization technology. Shortly thereafter, they acquired Chameleon, and became, I remember Andres told me acquired it, this is the exact words, so they acquired it as a feature, right? And that was the way he used it, which I was fascinated by somebody who did that. Now it's actually become a dominant part or a significant part of, pros sales and everything else.
I would argue pricing's become a featured CPQ.
Yeah, well, there you go. I mean, and then at the same time,
it's better to land CPQ and then add POM.
Well, I think CPQ, look, itself is not a giant market. It never has been, but it's a perfect landing. It's perfect for what you guys do, and it's perfect for how you land it. But the additional aspect, you had the best prescriptive AI I ever saw. Before prescriptive AI was barely a term.
Yeah.
No, this was prescriptive AI.
I see,
with Dan Tolan used to run it for you, and you guys were well ahead of anyone else, and you still are, really. So, and I love, so you sort of, with generative AI just exploding on the scene, you managed to really do a good job of pulling together the message as a complementary one, not just we're replacing our AI with generative AI. We complement have both, and you're messaging a lot more around platform, which I'm very happy to see, and ecosystem, which I am very happy to see.
Yeah.
I mean, you're doing a really good job, and you're in the best. I think right now, you're in the best position I've ever seen pros be in, and that's in 8 years. And that's with a market dominance in several markets. So the question is, from today to 1 year from now, where do you go with that? Take it from a marketing standpoint.
Right.
Where do you go with that?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you and to tell you how much I appreciate what you just said, because there's been a lot of work going into this. I feel like I'm kind of failing every day. So, but it's like we're definitely moving the puck down the ice. It's just there's still a couple blue lines ahead of us, and so it's just feel like there's a lot of work ahead of us. But we're definitely trying to make all those things happen. My presentation today it really was a forcing function to try to get that platform story out there. Dr. Wu's been unbelievably helpful in contextualizing the difference between the predictive AI that we're running and the large language models that are in GPT. So all that's working, and he's obviously a big part of everything that we're all doing. But I would say that what's interesting about us from an AI standpoint, and possibly the reason why we weren't more deeply recognized from an AI standpoint, is that we're an applied AI company.
Right.
We're not actually an AI platform. Right. We're a platform that uses AI, and a lot of it, and in a very super sophisticated way. But there are AI platform companies out there, quite a few of them, and mostly they've been unsuccessful. OpenAI is really the first kind of platforming company that's kind of making some moves, and we'll see where all that ends up. They're 10 billion to the good on that motion so far, so I think they're probably reasonably happy. Yeah. But I don't know what it's going to look like in 5 to 10 years from now, right? But I do think that where AI as a generalized platform is kind of tricky, because it doesn't really work well unless you have the specifics of the industry.
Absolutely right.
And I was talking a little bit today. I don't have it visualized very well yet, but we have these industry data types that make each industry's predictions relevant. Yeah. And what we're doing for oil and gas, and we work with all the biggest oil and gas companies, is not particularly applicable to what we do for the biggest food companies like Cargill. it just
Right, makes sense.
like, but we're using the same base AI, but we are applying it in a way that it makes sense. And so I think that's what's always been good about us. I will say that one of my observations among many at pros is that we have had a tendency to do two things. One is a little bit hide our light under a bushel. And this goes a little bit to the engineering culture. And this is not in any way meant to be critical, because it's a little bit of how they pitched me to come on board. But a bit of the engineering culture is when it's all perfect, then we'll talk about it. That's an engineering mindset. And I applaud that engineering mindset every time I drive across the bridge. Right? I'm okay with that. Get it right, then put the bridge up. Okay, you don't need to rush it. Okay, but it does lead to, like, it's not quite perfect. So maybe this was actually the internal fight they had at OpenAI. I don't know if you've read those accounts.
No.
It was a huge battle about releasing 3.5, because 3.5 is significantly different from 4. I use 4.
Right.
5's coming, but the 3.5 was viewed as kind of a fun, interesting toy, but not really something for the public.
Right.
And they decided to get it out there to get the ball rolling, and of course that was a good decision. But it's an unusual engineering decision. And so we've had a bit of a tendency to kind of hold back until everything was perfect, and there's always something else to do. And the second thing is that it's a little bit of a cultural, and it might be Houston, it might be the type of people. We have a very, and again, not a negative, but a bit more of an introverted, slightly more...
It's a quiet,
yeah. And we work with people who, like, we'll sit down in a room with an airline, and our pitch is we spend 2 days doing math with them.
Wow.
Like, we're not going in there with PowerPoints and, whiz bang. Like, it's like, let's do some math.
Right.
And they're like, we need that math. So that combination has, I think, had made pros undersell itself.
Yep.
And so part of my job in the next year is that I am going to be putting some swagger in there. And if you look at the site today, we've got our ROI study up. We've got our new Forrester TEI study up. We've got our Gartner 2 years in a row. We've been a leader. There's a new Forrester wave coming. That's going to be prominently featured. And then you'll start to see me talk about our position as a number one player in the market and why. And so the tagline that I'm playing with right now is we're number one because we try harder. And one of the things that I want to sort of... They abandoned it. So I'm like, that line is available now. And if you drop the line, someone else can take it. And Ivy dropped a line that Dove picked up, and Dove went to town on it. And I do think that it allows me to talk about our people, which you have amazing people.
Yes, we do.
And talk about the kind of people that try harder. And then talk about the kinds of things that we're able to create for our clients, because some of the outcomes we're generating are kind of amazing.
Well, you have in a lot of ways, a very brilliant, committed set of people too.
Yes, very much.
That you do. I mean,
Yeah.
I will tell you. I mean, to your point, I think the power of pros actually, and the positive side, has always been its ability, and it goes to the idea of application, to build use cases and then apply them.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's not just that they apply existing use cases; they actually are very good at building use cases too. I mean, when Brent and I, back in the earlier days of CRM, there was a point where we had to distinguish social integration, CRM with social integration, like Facebook, LinkedIn stuff, from traditional CRM, which didn't have it. So term was coined social CRM.
Yeah.
Now, the interesting thing about that, the way we meant it, and Brent and I were two of the original coiners of it, was temporary. Because now, if you look at every CRM system, has it integrated.
Better be.
But what happened was, and this, where it really took off, wasn't when we coined the term. It was when Jeremiah Ouyang and Ray Wang at Altimeter at the time actually created 8 use cases for it.
I thought it was 17.
No, that was the next iteration.
okay.
The first iteration was 8.
It was like the 95 thesis.
Right, exactly. But it was literally like that. And when those happened, boom. And now, of course, in 2011, we put out the word, take the S out of social CRM, because every CRM system is social. So by the way, if you're ever looking at market research, you never buy market research from a company that has social CRM market research. Seriously. I have actually looked at it, and they're literally reporting on companies that don't exist anymore.
Wow.
I mean, literally.
Wow,
Yeah.
shocking. Okay.
But any company that claims it, because there is no social CRM
And they're
differentiation.
They're charging 3,000.
That's right.
And as they say, I'm shocked to find that there's gambling here in.
So I know it's we're getting close to the end, but I want to just congratulate you on the event.
Yeah.
I love the agenda and the way it was laid out, having Michael Wu followed up by Dr. Poppy Crum. It was like a nice
great.
1-2.
Is she amazing?
Yeah, it was great.
He's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, we wanted people to come here and walk away feeling smarter. We want this to be a thought leadership event where people would be hearing things they wouldn't hear anywhere else from people that would be hard for them to get to. And we wanted them to be able to exchange ideas with each other. So there's a fair amount of social interaction and sort of time for that. And we want people going back and they'll say, I got 5, 10, 15 things out of this. It was an amazing investment of 2 days of time, and we got to do it again. We haven't done it for 4 years, so it's kind of, there was a bit of work to get the muscle back up and running, but my team did an amazing job of getting the speakers, getting the agenda, getting the teamwork done. It's a huge amount of coordination. One thing I'll note is that we have 110 speakers at this event.
I don't feel like it.
No, it's
110 speakers,
110.
of which 56 are customers.
Wow.
Half these speakers are
Wow.
customers
That's great.
on stage talking about their experiences, what they've done, what they're learning. We've had some amazing panels. So I've been learning a ton of stuff, which is always a great sign. Like I like when I go to my own things and learn new things. It's really cool. So I'm glad you're having a good time.
Well,
and-
that's the other side. So I would say add one thing to your comment. You want people to walk away smarter and happier
and happy
because they definitely are walking away both.
Yeah. Oh,
That's
absolutely.
I've been to every live one since 2016, right?
Okay.
And this is the best one.
Yeah,
for me, absolutely
Well,
the
that's
best
great to hear. That's
I
awesome.
love this one. I am so happy.
Plus
to
the
see
venue
where
is
they-
cool. Denver. I
And
like
when do you
it.
get to go to Denver? Everyone's gone through the airport,
That's
but no
me
one
too.
ever stays, right?
Really,
It's
that
like-
never. 2003
That's
or 4, whenever Broadmoor was last time we were.
Oh.
Well, I've been here since last Friday. Anders and I got here early to work on the keynote and stuff. And I will say, the town's way more cowboy than I expected. You know what I mean? Like, there's like a lot of
It is,
cowboy here.
still?
Yeah, there's just a lot of like cowboy murals, cowboy pictures, and I don't know. It's like a little bit more west than I expected. But
You know
now,
what?
when I think about it, I'm like, of course that makes total sense. But it feels more western than like
You know,
Texas
the,
feels.
you know what the football team is? The Broncos, right?
Good point.
Yeah, I never made that connection.
You know,
You're
that
right.
actually
That's
is a pretty
point.
good point.
Yeah, that's an excellent.
I
point.
think we asked you the question. The
Yeah,
question
he's been
already,
on
so
before.
I think you got a pass on the.
You're not a
favorite
Patriots
NFL
fan.
team.
You're not a Patriots fan, right?
Well, so I'm Canadian.
See, there it is.
That- right, we
So
talked
I'm a
about that.
Toronto Maple Leafs fan, mostly
That's right.
There it is.
primarily,
You're good.
which is the journey of 1,000 deaths.
I know.
And the only
This year
team,
must
the
have
only
been,
team to not win a Stanley Cup in the modern era.
and yet one
and-
of the original teams.
Yeah,
Well,
the
they're-
original 6.
They're like, imagine the Yankees who never win. That's like they're as expensive as
That's
the
like
Yankees.
sacrilege.
They're all the high-powered players of the Yankees. They have all the resources of the Yankees. They have the sold-out arena of the Yankees, and they never win
I
or they
know.
never get past the first
Wow.
round. It is such torture.
This year
But
must have been really.
I saw my very first baseball game about 2 weeks ago.
Really.
Yeah,
Wow.
Where'd you go?
it was a Yankee game, and
You actually went to the Yankee game.
yeah. But I was because I have a place in New York, and so it was very fun. But I can see why people like it. It's cool. But I had to pick a team, right? And so I decided to be a Houston Astros fan.
Oh my
Oh my
God!
God.
You
I
literally
am a
are
Houston
about to be
Astros.
thrown out of
And
this
so I
booth
am a
right now.
diehard Houston Astros.
realize
fan.
maybe-
Oh
I
my
was-
God.
You realize
this
you
took a turn for the.
I know.
Really,
Things
you
just got
literally
really
lose your
bad, I know.
reputation among
But
all
maybe-
human beings.
I don't know. This may or
except
may not be
people from
good. So I will tell you on football, I became a Seahawks fan because we worked really closely with Pete Carroll. So Pete Carroll was actually a management consultant with us. So I
Wow.
got to know him really well. And so
Understandable.
became a Seahawks fan. But my inaugural season of learning about football, and my dad, who passed away a year ago, he taught me football in the 1972 perfect season of the Miami Dolphins.
Wow.
Larry Zonka, that
Yeah,
whole
yeah.
crew.
Jim Kick.
Greasy.
Mercury Morris.
And I basically, at that time, very young child, I was watching this team, learning how the game's played. And I thought, I'm going to be a Miami Dolphins fan because they always win. And again, a life of constant
They
trouble.
haven't won a Super
so
Bowl since.
here's the deal. You know that the Yankees have replaced the Red Sox with the Astros as the most hated team.
Really?
because the Astros cheated in 2017.
Did they?
Yes, they did.
Define cheating.
Easy.
It
You
seems-
steal signs illegal
It
ways.
seems like very competitive.
Oh no, it's competitive.
Strong desire to win.
I believe
I
that.
almost don't want to end this because it's
However,
really got to be
And
interesting.
as you know, I am diehard Yankees and absolutely agree with that assessment.
Well, I was in the owner's box for that game.
That's even worse. Wait, which owner's box?
The Yankees
Oh,
owner's
that's
box.
okay.
I know. One of those. Yeah, that's how I saw
That's
the
right, it
game
was-
from the owner's box. It was
okay.
pretty
Oh
hot.
my goodness.
That's
It was pretty
okay.
hot.
We better end
Yeah.
this now because
Yeah.
we can talk forever.
I'm going to have to do some work.
If
on
you're
you,
in
though.
town, you want to.
I actually been to Astros games with pros
Uh-huh.
before they cheated.
Wait a minute. Do you know any Rams people? I mean, that would be good.
Do you not know any Rams people?
The answer
Who
is
do they play for?
I'll introduce the Yankees.
No, what's the Rams?
Oh my God. Los Angeles?
Los Angeles. Okay. No, I don't know.
The
any
guy
there.
who
No.
runs CRM for the Yankees is one of my closest friends.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you what, I'll take you up on the game.
And I know an owner of the Yankees, so
I know
we can do
Marty
it.
Greenspun too.
We'll do something fun.
We will
Okay,
do
good.
this.
All right.
Done
Awesome.
deal.
Yeah, I'm glad
But
you
you're
guys
gonna have
made
to.
it.
It's
I'm
not
glad
going
you guys
to be an
made up.
Astros game. No, we haven't yet. We'll see.
Listen,
At least I got a donut out of
you
this,
have
so
one of the
I'm all right.
lobster rolls in the Yankees owner's box. You and I will be good.
I've been.
We don't have to ever
I
have
like
any
Yankees
problems.
food, but it's still.
And on that note, folks, been a pleasure
Thank you so
having
much.
you.
All
Thanks
right,
for
man.
dropping
See
by.
you too soon. That was
Absolutely. We're going to do our regular. We want to let him go, and then we'll do our little
Yeah,
regular.
Just unclip this.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
unclip that.
Thank you.
All right.
All right. There you go.
Okay. Thanks, you too. Have a great day.
Take care, my friend. And thanks for everything.
That was fun up until the no Rams.
No Rams.
No Rams and
Houston
Astros.
Astros.
That
Oh
was
my
really
God.
interesting.
Interesting is not the
It's
word I
like
would
that
give to it.
donut with a little sour taste in your mouth there.
I know. Now I'm
But
gonna
at
have
least
to
you might
rethink
you might get a chance to go to a Yankees game.
I go
Like
to
you
Yankee-
go anyway.
I do. I've been.
We do have a couple of well, Sven is really on some comments, but I think we're kind of running low on time. So
Yeah,
better.
we are.
But it's been a really good. We had 3 great guests.
Yeah. All in all, I mean, the interesting thing you always see from all of these kind of guests combined is first, it's very visionary if you really think about it. And then at the same time, as we saw with our friend from Lasership,
Yep.
it's very practically applied and the value proposition becomes obvious. And again, we're analysts. We can criticize things and we're allowed to. But this one it was really
Very
really-
well done.
Yep.
Very impressed after 4 years, and this was his first one
Yeah.
doing it. So, but when you have a home run hitter, bat in 4th place, Michael Wu,
Yeah.
you kind of have a pretty good start to your agenda.
Michael, aka Aaron Judge Wu.
Aaron Judge Wu. Okay.
That's it. Aaron Judge Wu. Not even Dr. Wu anymore. Now it's Judge Wu.
Anyway, we'll think about that a little bit. So no, it's great. I'm glad we had a chance to do this. It's very cool to see Outperform come back in the actual physical form, and people are really excited. They're really excited about some of the things they heard about today.
Yeah. Again, for me, best conference I've been to since the first one.
Wow, that says a lot. All right. Thanks to everybody here at Outperform. And thanks to everybody that was, we couldn't do the comments as much as we usually do, but we will be back. See, I started to talk to this, and I should be talking to this. We will be back tomorrow because we haven't done like a Thursday show in a couple of weeks because all this traveling and stuff. But we are back to our regular time, 3 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, and we do have a guest.
You?
Katrina Gosek, who is a VP over on the CX side of product marketing for Oracle, will be joining us, and then Friday, he's back. The one and only Bob Stutz is back.
No BS with Bob Stutz. Go to LinkedIn if you want to see what it's about. But just be there. You know it's worth it. You do.
No BS. It's well worth it. All right. Big finish now?
Yeah.
I guess it's just we don't do
Yeah, we
many
don't
on the
do-
okay.
no.
But we just still say our names. All right. So I'm Brent Leary.
I'm Paul Greenberg.
We are the CRM Players, and we will see you tomorrow. Hopefully. Join us.
Bye.